I'm Jessica Reich. I am a co-owner of Unstuck and an OHA licensed facilitator. So my personal story, honestly, kind of in a position where psilocybin found me, and I didn't even know it was something that I needed until it happened. I was in a place where I was feeling extremely just lost. My work life was not as fulfilling as it used to be. I was getting very disenchanted and very disgruntled with the healthcare system as it stands. I knew there was a huge disconnect between mental health and physical health and how those are so intertwined and they were not being addressed together. So I'm a physical therapist by background and been a physical therapist for a little over 10 years now. And I just noticed more and more how much more of a mental health therapy session I would have than an actual physical therapy session a lot of times. And so knew there was a problem, didn't really know how to address that or handle that. And encountering psilocybin, I recognized a part of myself that I didn't even know was there. It was truly like a calling, like you are a caretaker, but you also need to get this to people. This is your calling, is to get this out. And just because it does, it opens up an entire world that you didn't know existed. I feel like it brings you a lot closer to yourself than you could have ever really imagined before. And even kind of answers the questions that you didn't know were questions that you had about you. And I definitely had that experience where my ego and my id, was set aside, and there was a moment of, it has nothing to do with me, but that's wonderful. So free. I got to the core of me without all that noise, without all the, BS that we've been brought up to believe about ourselves, or, that false narrative that we're so good at creating in our heads all the time and walking with, and creating our sense of reality too. That bust wide open. And I was able to focus on what was actually really meaningful to me, what was important to me, and who I was at my core, and where I needed to go. So, that's kind of how psilocybin found me. And I think the important thing to realize about psilocybin, and really psychedelics in general, is that while I do feel like it could benefit every single person, I don't think it's necessarily for every person. And I think there are some things that you kind of have to address with yourself first. I really do feel like going through the traditional channels are actually really important and powerful and helpful. I think seeing psilocybin more as a tool or a gateway to kind of get to where you want to go is a way better way to look at it than this is the miracle drug, or like the one thing, that I need that's going to fix everything, because it does. I mean, it opens the door, but you really have to take the initiative to walk through and then walk that path that it shows you afterwards. So I think that's a huge caveat to doing this. I think having a support network is extremely beneficial and helpful. I think it's very easy to have an experience and then not know what the heck to do with that experience afterwards. If you have no support, you have no one to talk to. If you're nervous, if your family, doesn't agree with it, or your friends don't agree with it, or whatever, or you're just afraid to talk about it for risk of your job, or your safety of your livelihood. So that's where I think finding like-minded people, I think getting involved in group sessions, even if it's something you never would have thought of doing, a group, I'd say be open to that, because really that shared experience can be one of the most powerful experiences, and the things that kind of keep the experiences alive and going for longer too. There's obvious, kind of like red flags that Oregon Health Authority has put out, in terms of, having an active psychosis. If you've taken lithium in the past 30 days, if you do have uncontrolled blood pressure or heart rate, if you're taking SSRIs or antidepressants, these are factors to consider too. the big thing about the SSRIs, antidepressants, is that while there's no necessarily, medication interaction specifically with psilocybin, it's just you could have a negated or a blunted experience, which that alone can be pretty upsetting for people, especially if you're taking all this energy, all this time, all this money to have this, and then you don't have the experience you want. That can be pretty upsetting for people. So knowing that that's a possibility. And I'd say, if you're feeling drawn to this, or there's something calling you to this for some reason, and you've been weighing it out and it kind of keeps coming back, I think that's a very good indication that this might be the right path for you. Whereas if you have this urge and this like incessant need that you have to do this, you have to take this right now, I would really caution you to take a step back and realize where that's coming from, and maybe do a little bit more back work on yourself, with a therapist or with someone that you trust, to really get to the bottom of that, why this is such a compulsive need, before doing it. Because I feel like I might sound a little crazy saying this, but I do think there's some sentient to the mushrooms. I feel like there's this energy that they really, match what you're throwing at them. And while I do feel like they are so good at not letting you run from what's really deep inside of you, and they're so good at kind of, getting to the source of what is essentially you, I feel like at the same time, it can go quite the other direction, if you let it. How do you determine if this is right for you? That's a beautiful question. So that's hard. I don't think there's one right answer for whether this is right for you or not. I think definitely do your research. There is so much out there right now. This is the golden age of mushrooms and psilocybin and psychedelics. So the information is out there. Search for it, seek it out, and read. Do a lot of reading. Do a lot of questions. Ask the community. There's tons of things on Reddit, and while you might get certain people's specific, framework of what a psilocybin journey was for them, which again, take that with a grain of salt, because every experience is going to be so different, not only per individual, but per individual time you do this too, based on what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your environmental life too. So knowing that every single journey is different, and that you might not get what you want, but that you usually get what you need. And so this is where it is kind of difficult, because while I do think having some kind of intention going into this is important, I think it's really easy to get stuck on that. And if the journey wasn't quite answering that specific thing, people tend to feel really disappointed or let down, or that, maybe this didn't work for them. And I would really like to caution that I feel like the best experiences happen when you go into this curious and open, but not necessarily with any expectations. So yeah, listen to other people's journeys, see what, an experience is like, because there are going to be some things like, a lot of people have the visuals, a lot of people have the geometric patterns, a lot of people feel that connectedness, to everything in the earth and other people. But you could have one of those, you could have all of them, you could have none of that. Just depending on what's going on for you and what needs to come out in the moment for you. And so I say don't get discouraged, and don't feel like you didn't have quite the experience that somebody else had, because most likely it was the experience that you needed to have, or that was meant specifically for you. So yeah, be open, be curious, and again, I trust the gut a lot. Like if this really is something that you feel called to do, and you feel like, you feel really safe, you feel really confident, and you trust your source, you trust your facilitator or your guide, you trust where you're doing this, that tends to lend to a much more pleasant journey for most people than, if those factors weren't addressed. Set and setting, you hear those terms thrown around a lot, but it's very true and very important, and it plays a huge role. And I feel like that's one thing that I really do appreciate about Oregon Psilocybin Services, I got plenty to say, that I feel like could be improved or that, needs to change and happen still. But one thing that they do right is that safety piece. And they really make sure that this is a very, very well-researched, well thought out, really safe way to do this, to address a mental health crisis that is an epidemic, quite frankly, in this country. And, when you're talking about the risk category and the risky substances stuff, alcohol is 1,000 times, that is on this end of the chart, and psilocybin is on the very, very end. Actually, psilocybin has been found to be the least risky substance for people. So I think with that in mind, knowing that you have a ton to potentially gain and not a lot really that you're risking, especially in terms of your safety or your physical and mental health, I think it's worth it to, at least for yourself, to do the research and to really look into it more. Nice. Yeah. Good. I think good. That's good.